The May 22nd, 2023 meeting of the Environment and Public Works Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Blankley. Here. Mr. Blankley is present. Mr. Florio. Here. Mr. Florio is present. Mr. Hebert. Here. Mr. Hebert is present. Ms. Hugh Smith. Here. Ms. Hugh Smith is present. Mr. Johns. Here. Mr. Johns is present. Mr. Mafucci. Here. Mr. Mafucci is present. Chairman McCabe.
Present.
Chairman McCabe is present.
Is there anyone signed up for the public forum?
There is not.
Is there anyone present who has not signed up to speak who would like to speak? It doesn't appear there is. At this point, I would like to invite Pat Guchup, Senior Planner from Monroe County Planning and Development Department, who will now give a brief overview of the 2024-2029 Capital Improvement Program as it pertains to the Environment and Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You should all have a copy of the recommended 2024-2029 CIP. This report reflects the culmination of an 11-month process beginning in late summer with departments proposing a 6-year funding plan for capital projects. A committee reviews the proposed projects and requires changes based on priority project, fiscal constraints on the program. After review by the county executive, the CIP is submitted to the county planning board. The planning board reviews the CIP, holds a public hearing, and sets priorities for the capital budget year, which is the first year of the CIP, or 2024 in this case. The planning board returns the draft CIP to the county executive, who then submits the recommended CIP to your honorable body. At the June meeting of the legislature, you will set a public hearing for July, and then, upon your favorable review, vote to adopt the plan. There are no funding approvals associated with taking action on this referral. There are 4 sections of the CIP pertinent to this committee: the airport and 3 divisions of the Department of Environmental Services. The airport has a large program with 24 projects. Their program begins on page 24 of your CIP. There are no new airport projects in this year's CIP. Airport funding amounts and schedules are subject to change as FAA priorities change. FAA funding depends on shifting federal priorities, and so the airport shifts accordingly. The airport program accounts for 9.7% of the total recommended 2024-2029 capital program. Moving on to the Department of Environmental Services. The Pure Water section begins on page 39. There are 20 projects in Pure Water's program this year, listed on page 40. The first 4 projects listed, general improvements to each of the 4 Pure Waters districts, are funded with district cash and so will not impact the district's debt service payments. 3 new Pure Waters projects are introduced to the CIP in 2029, giving us time to prepare for this spending and further evaluate needs. The Pure Waters program accounts for 22.8% of the total capital program. The facilities management section begins on page 48. There are 12 projects in this program. 2 new projects, roof replacements, and the Civic Center chiller plant are introduced into the CIP in 2029. General building and site improvements are proposed to be funded biannually beginning in 2025. The facilities program accounts for 7.3% of the total capital program. The solid waste division on pages 53 and 54 of your CIP account for just over 2% of the total capital program. Improvements to the Monroe County Recycling Center and Resource Recovery Facility will be paid with enterprise cash from the operating budget. I'll be happy to take questions when you get to this item on your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gooch. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the April 24th, 2023 minutes of the Environment and Public Works Committee before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. Next item on the agenda is new business.
Referral number 23-0144. Adopt 2024 to 2029 Capital Improvement Program.
Moved by Mr. Johns, seconded by Legislator DeFlorio. Very good. Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration. The CIP has many projects in it. Can you tell us when these projects' cost estimates were completed?
Through the chair. The cost estimates for the projects are completed as they are entered into the CIP programming schedule, which is a planning document and occurs every year, but for a 6-year cycle. So projects proposed this year potentially are being proposed in 2029 or potentially sooner. With that being said, as projects come to the forefront or the budget year 2024, numbers and departments reevaluate their numbers to ensure that the numbers are up to date so they can complete the project as anticipated. So it varies dramatically based on the project, the life of it, and the term.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, does that explain why the administration is bringing up virtually every month changes or updates to the legislature, increasing authorizations for projects that have been listed in the CIP for years?
Through the chair, the amendments to the CIP program that come to this honorable body are a combination of increased prices or project changes, or price decreases don't need to come to this body, but those do also occur as well. So in part, yes, it could be because of the inflation we've seen in the recent past, but these projects are estimated to be as reliable as possible at the time that they are estimated.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, how much faith does the administration have that these projects will be completed within, let's say, 10% of the cost shown in the CIP?
Through the chair, we anticipate that all projects will be completed under budget and at cost. That is the goal of this process.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration. However, if something was priced in, say, 2020, what are we this year, 2025, no, 2027 or something for this year, 28, and it hasn't been adjusted until this year, going in, we know that that's probably not an accurate cost assessment, correct?
So through the chair, the cost estimates that we receive in past years are a combination of methods that departments use. Some departments anticipate increased costs in their original estimation that they provide to the CIP program. Others are reevaluated as they get closer to the actual funding cycle. And then other projects that come before this honorable body for amendments are often due to the nature of construction and physical projects, where we do engineering work in year 1 or 2. That engineering work then gives us a clear estimate of, or a more clear estimate of, the actual cost of the project to undertake. And in doing so, we then reevaluate the CIP program with that design and construction that follows, with that physical construction that follows the design and construction.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, is there a maximum or a desired amount of the cost of the CIP in any given fiscal year's plan, such that when the budget is brought to this body, typically in November for passage in December, there's just a certain amount of funds available? Hopefully you understand my question. If not, I can try to restate.
Mr. Chairman, I will note for the committee that prior to commencement of the 11-month planning process, members of the planning department meet with members of the finance office to review prior year CIPs and set targets for department submissions for the upcoming CIP. Those targets are not hard and firm. They are based on guidance gleaned from the prior 8 to 10 CIPs, and are flexible in terms of the county funds required, state and federal funding, and the apportionment between county bonded projects and county cash funded projects. What's more, well, from a finance perspective, Mr. Chairman, what's more important is management of the county's outstanding bonded debt at the end of any given budget year, fiscal year, and the amount of debt service required in the annual operating budget. This county, with respect to debt service, Mr. Chairman, incurs roughly 6% of the operating budget. That is well below a 10% threshold believed to be prudent by the Government Finance Officers Association and our credit rating agencies.
Understood. That's all I have for the moment, Mr. Chairman. I maybe ask for again.
Any other questions? All right, with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral number 23-0145, authorize a contract with Pacero Associates Engineering, Architecture, and Surveying for professional design services for the Monroe County Parks System-Wide Facilities Renovations Project.
Moved by legislator Florio, second by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Legislator DeFlorio.
Yeah, through the chair to the administration, can you tell us what other firms submitted for proposal?
Through the chair, there were 8 firms that expressed interest, B&L, Bergman, CNS, Labella, Lero, Passero, who was selected, SWBR, and TY Lin, who actually submitted a no response form.
And through the chair to the administration, was Passero the lowest cost provider?
These are through the chair, these are qualification-based selections, so we get proposals back from the consultants and rate them based on their ability to perform the work. After that point, the selections are made. We do a scope and fee negotiation with the firm.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral number 23-0146, authorize contracts with Bergman Associates, Architects, Engineers, Landscape Architects and Surveyors, Erdman Anthony and Associates, and LaBella Associates for Monroe County Sheriff's Office Architectural and Engineering Term Services.
Moved by legislator Hebert, second by legislator Johns. Is there any discussion? Legislator Hebert.
Chairman, through you to the administration, why are 2 one-year extensions potentially required for these services?
Through the chair, that's typical of our engineering term services. We select the firms for the initial year, and then based on performance, we would renew the contract if the performance is adequate. And then we do that for 3 years, and then at the completion of that, we would come back to the legislature for a new cycle.
Through the chair, the reason I asked that to the administration, the reason I asked that question is these are, by the terms of what we were given, these are basically quick turnaround items, quick turnaround times. So I appreciate that answer. It does clarify. And then through you, Mr. Chairman, the administration, why is CPI-U, which stands for urban, the proposed adjustment mechanism for years, additional years to this contract? Typically, CPI-U turns out to be the biggest percentage of the, I don't know, 2 or 3 dozen different CPIs that are available.
Through the chair, that is generally what the engineering firms indicate that they would like to use. Keep in mind that that's up to that point. It's not that it's an automatically given that they're going to get that maximum percentage, but it gives us some wiggle room in negotiating the increase year over year.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chairman, the administration, then my recollection, and not claiming to be 100% correct always on recollections, is that this is one of the first times I've seen CPIU, which means prior contracts for this and other things have come through with a different CPI adjustment factor. Why is the administration changing to this now? Yeah, assuming I'm right.
Through the chair, so this term service contract for the sheriff is the first one we've done with the sheriff. But if I refer back to one, for instance, for the energy term services, which we'll look at later on, in 2020, we used the CPIU statistic.
Okay, thank you. I'm yield the floor.
Legislator Hugh Smith.
Projects. List out what those are.
Through the chair, generally speaking, for term services, we don't have a specific project listed. These are just projects that come up, I'll say on the fly or based on the needs of the individual department. If there's a project that has a more specific need, we would lump that together and actually then come back to the legislature for a specific project. But in this particular case, for the sheriffs, an example would be they've got a pump station outside their building. We need to do some work to upgrade that pump station. We'd have an engineer design that. They had some interior work that had to be done. We'd have a design consultant or an architect evaluate that. So they're really projects that are not very well defined throughout the year, and that's why we do it through a term contract.
Thank you, appreciate it. You're the-
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral number 23-0147, authorized contracts with ME Engineering and Wendell WD Architecture, Engineering, Surveying, and Landscape Architecture for energy engineering term services.
Second.
Moved by legislator John, second by legislator Florio. Is there any discussion? Legislator Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. McCabe, and through you to the administration. Is this contract connected in any way to the requirements or expectations of the Climate Action Plan, and if so, how?
Through the chair, not directly. It could be used for that purpose, but generally speaking, if we have an energy situation where we need to have a specialized firm, this is what this would cover. So for instance, out at Iola, where we have a number of large boilers for providing heat to the hospital, we'd utilize these firms for that because of their specific expertise.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chairman of the administration, do these firms have expertise in the deployment of green energy projects?
Yes, they certainly do. Through the chair, yes, they do.
And last question through you, Mr. Chairman of the administration, do these firms have expertise in grid capacity and other grid-related issues?
Through the chair, can you repeat that?
Sure. I'll rephrase it. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration. There's a lot of talk about the ability of the grid to handle the capacity of green projects at places. And if we are moving to green energy in places that it hasn't been before, are these companies positioned to understand the impacts on the grid their recommendations might carry?
Through the chair, yes, they are. They do have specific building electrification experience that may be useful to us in the future. So the short answer is yes, they do. Quite a bit of experience in that.
And I guess I lied. One last question, Mr. Chairman, through you to the administration. So they also work with the grid providers.
Through the chair, yes, they do.
Thank you. I yield the floor.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Program number 23-0148, authorize contracts with Bergman Associates, architects, engineers, landscape architects, and surveyors, Fisher Associates, PELSLA, DPC, Geocope Inc., and Wendell WD Architecture, Engineering, Surveying, and Landscape Architecture for Geographic Information System Term Services.
Moved by legislator DeFlorio, second by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, legislator Hebert.
Are these the same services providing, are these the same firms providing these services now?
Through the chair, yes, they are, with the addition of GeoColf, who's a WBE.
Thank you. I yield the floor.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral number 23-0150, classification of action and determination of significance pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act for the sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at 456 West Side Drive in the town of Gates.
Moved by legislator Hebert, second by legislator Johns. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral number 23-0152, classification of action and determination of significance pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act for the sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at 189 Golden Road in the town of Charli.
Moved by legislator Florio, second by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral number 23-0154, classification of action and determination of significance pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act for the first-time home buyers program funded through the Monroe County Home Investment Partnerships Program.
Moved by legislator Hebert, second by legislator Johns. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
For number 23-0155, classification of action and determination of significance pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act for the acquisition, rehab, resale program funded through Monroe County Home Investment Partnerships Program.
Moved by legislator Johns, second by legislator Florio. Is there any discussion? Legislator Hebert.
Gabe, through you to the administration, if I may, Chairman, how can this program have a single seeker provide for all of the unspecified locations?
Through the chair, the seeker determination that in the short environmental assessment form that is before this honorable body consists of a programmatic seeker looking at the potential for significant adverse environmental impacts depending on the project. What is before you, given the approval, is looking at the potential for significant adverse environmental impacts of a repair or rehabilitation of a single-family home in an area that is zoned and properly permitted for such. In the event a project comes before the county and is funded by the county that is outside the parameters that are considered within the seeker, we would have to come back to the legislature to again have a more specific review of that particular project. However, given the expectations of the planning department when offering this through CDBG funds, it is typically single-family homes that are in already subdivided tracts, and typically the parameters of those impacts can be identified at this time.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, just as a quick follow-up. So translate what I think I just heard. You've got a bunch of projects. You don't know where they're going to go, but most of them are going to qualify as essentially non-events from a seeker perspective. And therefore, this will cover those. If one's outside the scope of that, you'll be back with a different seeker.
Through the chair, that's correct. The seeker considers a set of parameters that we expect all projects to be funded will fall within those parameters. If there are parameters or potential for significant adverse environmental impacts that can't be identified at this time, we will come back to the legislature for additional supplemental seeker findings.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the explanation. I yield the floor, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
For number 23-0156, classification of action and determination of significance pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act for the Lifetime Assistance Brick Schoolhouse Road Project funded through Monroe County Home Investment Partnerships Program.
Moved by legislator Hebert, second by legislator Johns. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral number 23-0175, commit unassigned fund balance for the specific purpose of funding town initiatives to install sidewalks on county roads.
Moved by legislator Johns, second by legislator Florio. Is there any discussion? Legislator Mafucci.
Mr. Chairman, appreciate the recognition. A little reluctant to ask this question because it's early yet, but I'm curious.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. This is a new program that we're initiating. What our plan right now is to start with an incentive of 50% as a pilot program. Our thought behind this was, if you take a look, obviously county roads go across the different municipal boundaries. And I like to use the example of a road I'm on every day, Long Pond Road. If you take the start of Long Pond Road, there's sidewalks on both sides of the street. And once you get to the Gatestown line, the sidewalks stop. And again, I'm sure that that's something that happens all across the county. I'm not, I'm only using that as an example because that's a road I travel every day. So we're looking at it and we're thinking, with everything we're looking at in terms of the active transportation plan and the different studies that we're doing, we wanted to find and create a policy that would encourage municipalities to do sidewalks. And we're starting with a pilot, as I mentioned, of 50%. Again, we don't maintain the sidewalks. That's on the municipalities. But as we go through the capital projects, it's something we're looking at, and again, it could be something that everybody takes us up on, and then maybe 50% isn't a sustainable number, or it's something that might not be taken advantage that often, and then 50% will work. But right now, pilot program 50%. We're in the process of doing design work on Aldridge Road in Parrington, and that's something that will be the first project that we actually initiate this on.
Thank you. You answered my second question. Didn't even have to ask.
Legislator Blankley.
Question. Does the administration have criteria already for what road projects are already? I think the language was appropriate for sidewalk installations. What are those criteria?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, the criteria is quite simple. This will be done on a project-by-project basis. It will be done in conjunction and in consultation with the municipality, and it'll vary by project. I would assume there are going to be individual factors that weigh in. Again, that will be decided by the town. or the municipalities as we do this. There could be issues of right of way. There could be issues of trees. There could be other design elements that might make it challenging. But it's our intent to have this available on every project where it's practical.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. Legislator Florio?
So the town will decide if they want to apply for this, and if they do, then I guess what I'm asking is that good enough criteria? Would there be a time when you would come in and say, it's not prudent to put a sidewalk in this area, or if the funds start to run out? And I guess that's why I'm thinking, and I agree with the legislators on the other side of the aisle, that I feel like we need to have a defined process, so that if we run out of money, what's the pecking order? If I want to put a sidewalk out, in South Chi where there's more cows than there are people, does that make sense versus another area where it's highly dense?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, what we're looking at with this is right now we're appropriating money out of fund balance to support this effort. Our guess is the dollars that we're putting aside here from fund balance will fund this project for a while. And once those dollars are gone or are exhausted, we would then include these projects in the future and the capital cost of the particular project that we have. And again, in terms of our criteria, if there is a local desire on the part of the municipalities to have sidewalks there, we would be on board with installing them. And again, I think there's going to be a case-by-case assessment. I think there will be an element of collaboration, and basically I think it's going to be clear in a lot of cases where it makes sense to do sidewalks and to not do sidewalks. And again, ultimately it's going to be on the town. We're never going to be in a position where we tell a municipality that, hey, look, we're definitely doing this and we have to do sidewalks, because they're going to be paying for at least half of it. They're going to be responsible for the maintenance of it and any future obligations with that. But no, it will be done on a case-by-case basis. And again, and it will be solely done at the desire of the municipality. It's not something we would force on anybody.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration, I guess I was thinking of it the opposite way, particularly if we start to run out of funding, that if we have more requests than we have funding allocation for, what would be the rubric or the criteria for you to make a determination that project A gets bumped ahead of project B?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, and I would stress again that these are only going to be 4 county roads that we have a county project on, and ultimately guidance for this would be dictated by the active transportation plan. So we would follow any recommendations or guidance that plan had in terms of where we would be installing sidewalks.
Thank you. I yield the floor.
Legislator Hebert? I'll come back.
This is a pilot program. Did I hear that correctly?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the 50% number is a pilot program. The installation and the matching funds is a policy change on the part of the administration, but the pilot is the percentage, and that pilot program will be monitored, and those dollars will be watched and accounted for, and then if there ends up being an extremely high demand where the 50% eats up those dollars quicker than we would anticipate, we might end up scaling that back. But it's our goal to start with 50%.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration. How long do you expect the $10 million to last at this point?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I could give you a real rough guess with this. At any given time, there are probably 6 or 7 county highway projects in the CIP at a time. So that's over a 7-year period. And where we are with design, it would also vary on how long of a stretch of road that we have. I know we're having conversations, and this is a very rough, and I would ask not to be held to this at this point. But with the town of Parenton, I think we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million for sidewalks. So the share on that particular road would be $500,000. Again, I'm not the DOT person, and I'm not an expert on this. That seems like a relatively big dollar amount, and I would anticipate that would be a little bit on the high side with that. But again, using that as a guide, that's a project that I believe we're in design on. So I don't think we're going to be starting that until next year. That $10 million should last us, I would think, at least the 6-7 years. Would be my, again, real rough guess with this.
Okay, the way, through you, Mr. Chairman of the administration, the way you described this, the 50% is the pilot number, I guess, that the way you wanted to put that. Are there any specifics on what would make you make a determination to either increase or decrease that? Like if we're sitting here 10 years from now and there's still some money left in that, does that mean you should increase it? Or do you have any feel for any of that? And if you don't, I understand.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think a lot of us won't be sitting here 10 years from now, and that's not a bad thing, right? This is a moving target. This is a new program, a new proposal. It's something that we've heard from people on in terms of the sidewalks. Again, if all of the projects that we had in the CIP ended up wanting to have sidewalks with this, and they ended up being complicated designs and long projects, and that money, those dollars were not going to make it through at least the first batch of projects. I would think we might take a look at that. And again, another possibility of this is, again, is these dollars run out, we look at, increasing the scope and cost of the projects for down the road. So it's a moving target. And again, I would use that as a rough guide in terms of the 50%.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I saved the best for last. Through you to the administration. Is this the best use of $10 million of unassigned fund balance, given that we've had things like long lists of ARPA requests for money from various local organizations, including things like nurse training and EMT stuff, EMS stuff? Is this the highest priority we should be putting this $10 million of unallocated fund balance toward?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think this is something that will probably come up at other points as we discuss other items that are in the packet this month. If not tonight, then I'm sure probably tomorrow. I think it's important that we look at the totality of what the needs and the wants and the roles and responsibilities are that we have as a county government. And we're trying to balance the different needs that we have as a community. And you mentioned the ARPA dollars. We had $144 million that we just spent on ARPA proposals, or not spent, but authorized contracts for with that. We're looking at spending, $7 million for additional law enforcement resources with that. And again, we think over a period of years, this is a reasonable proposal. And again, it's a case of balancing, balancing the needs and the responsibility of our operation and our government. So we feel that this is a reasonable program. And again, it's something that it is an issue in terms of safety and pedestrian safety, and that's why we've advanced it. And again, there is a demand and there is an interest in this, at least from some municipalities, and we thought it made sense to advance this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield the floor.
Legislator Mafucci.
Many towns are doing them. And, not going to go away, I don't think, because we'll be right traffic, cars. This really is a very effective use of balance, because it's one-shot revenue for one-shot projects that will do a wonderful pilot.
Legislator Johns, did you have a question? Nope. Legislator Florio?
Just one last question. If a municipality had a road project that was completed, let's say last year or the year before, and had wanted to do a sidewalk project but couldn't swing it financially, is there any potential for them applying for these matching funds now? They wanted to put in a stretch of sidewalk on a county road.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll actually have to talk to Director Fries about that. I don't know that off the top of my head. We can get an answer to that before full edge.
Thank you.
Legislator Hugh Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration, just thank you for moving this forward, taking a more comprehensive look at both public safety and.
Smith, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. That completes. Are there any other matters to come before the committee this evening? There being no other matters, the May 22nd, 2023 meeting of the Environment and Public Works Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Environment and Public Works Committee is scheduled for Monday, June 26, 2023 at 5:15. Thank you, everyone.